Welcome back everyone. So if you're watching this video, chances are you have a major exam like the SAT coming up and you are trying to study for it in the most efficient way possible. In this video, I'll be letting you all know what to do in your study routine, what to incorporate to make sure you have the most productive study routine no matter what exam you're taking. I will also tell you how to apply these concepts to your own routine so you can become the perfect studier. So the first major element of this routine is spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is exactly what it sounds like. It's basically when you study for 2 to 3 hour blocks and you space these 2 to 3 hour blocks within like 5 or 7 hour gaps. This idea of spaced repetition is you're basically not studying for the exam all at once, but you're breaking up the amount of studying you're doing into not one whole segment, not one whole binge study, but in like 2 or 3 mini study blocks. And the reason this is so effective is because when you are binge studying, say for 8 hours or 7 hours, you're only actually retaining useful information at a high rate, probably for 3 or 4 hours, maybe even less. So when you're binge studying for 8 hours straight, for the last 4 hours, you're practically learning nothing. You're just wasting time and not being productive in your study routine. Yes, you may be doing the math problems, but you're not actually understanding them, or at that point, it's so monotonous that your brain doesn't retain anything you're doing. The worst part is, without spaced repetition, when you study for long periods of time, you're tricking your brain and yourself into thinking you're putting in the amount of work required for the exam when you're really not. It's more about quality studying versus quantity, and that's what spaced repetition allows you to pursue. But now I have no exams, but when I studied for my college finals or even the SAT in high school, the way I used to study was I would study 2 to 3 hours in the morning and study 3 to 4 hours at night. And I'll get into why I study more at night later in the video. And I would only study for 3 days a week, maybe 4 or 5 depending on when the exam was coming up. If it's a month away, then I would only do 3 days a week. I found this to be really effective and really useful because it prevented me from doing 12-hour study sprints where I would literally be cramming information to my brain. The next morning I would feel drained. Now the second key thing to incorporate your study routine is to rehearse past exams. The one thing I never understood was when I would watch students do problems for an exam from a third-party resource, like a separate company. I know for the SAT it's popular to take exams from Princeton Review or Kaplan, and the thing that isn't good about these companies that are administering these exams, that these exams are specially made to be harder than the test you're preparing for. And these harder problems give a misrepresentation of what to expect for the exam and ends up with students feeling less confident and not feeling like they can really get a high score on the exam. So the thing I love to do to get the most direct, unbiased representation of what I'll be facing maybe in a week or two is I would take publicly released past exams for whatever class I'm studying the exam for, and I would take those exams. Like for example, when it comes to the SAT, and I always bring this up because that's where the channel started, but the SAT College Board has 10 released SAT practice exams that have been administered at one point in time. So these problems you can do, and these problems give an accurate representation of what to expect in the time to come. So the next time you're studying for the MCAT, SAT, ACT, or college final, find publicly released past exams, and I'm sure many organizations offer these exams that have been previously administered. Like College Board has like 10 SAT practice exams online that have been administered at one point. Use these exams and these exam problems to get an accurate representation of where you are and what you can probably expect to get score-wise on the exam you're going to take. And even free resources like Khan Academy have ended up not administering realistic problems because I don't know if you guys use Khan Academy, you study computer science, math, English, or whatever topic you are studying for, maybe even engineering. But Khan Academy loves at a certain point to give you insanely hard problems that students face and they end up not getting right, and they think that they need to study more on that topic when they really don't. Because at that point, you're doing calculus when you should be only getting algebra 1 problems. And that ties in perfectly into the third part of the study routine, and that is real-time test simulations. So in other words, simulate the test environment you're going to expect. I try to make it sound very cool. Now this is a very important thing every student should prepare for because time crunch and test anxiety are real things. And the thing is, most people's study routine don't account for these elements. And they can study as hard as they want, but when the exam comes, the nerves get to them and they end up failing. So what I recommend to do is at the last part of your study routine, maybe a week before your exam, you want to simulate the actual test environment you'll be facing come the next week. So what I would do is when I had a college final the next week, I would sit down for 3 hours, no phone, no interruptions, have a clock and time myself and make sure that if this was a real exam, that this would be the environment and this is how I'll perform. Because this helped me get a sense of how timing should be like when I take the exam, as well as whether there'll be test anxiety, because by simulating the test environment, you're kind of like throwing yourself into the future, and you're able to see whether you'll be able to withstand like the time crunch, because time crunch is a big thing on any exam, and most students' biggest problem is time. And I remember the late great Kobe Bryant talking about how in practice he would make his teammates defend him like it was an actual NBA game, and when a teammate would not defend him like it was an actual NBA game, he would yell at that teammate and be like, "You're not playing real NBA defense. Just because it's practice doesn't mean you light off." And it's fair to say reasons like this is why Kobe Bryant is regarded as one of the greats of basketball. So you want to apply the same psychology and the same Mamba mindset to your exams. Because the worst thing you can have happen is you study super hard for the exam, and then on exam day, the nerves and anxiety gets to you and you fail the exam, then you have to end up taking the class again. Or if you're taking the SAT, you have to retake the SAT again. And keep in mind, while the SAT you can take again, a college final, if you fail it, you have to retake the entire class. There is no second try. And now the last part of the study routine that is kind of a little hack is to study at night. And this combines with spaced repetition, because in spaced repetition, you can allocate study blocks in the morning, afternoon, and night. But what I recommend to do is have the longest study block be at night, because science has proven that studying at night and sleeping shortly after boosts your memory retention to its max. So in other words, be sure to practice your math problems or read and study your passages at night, and don't hop on TikTok after, and don't overwrite that information that you just studied with Addison Rae and Bryce Hall dancing. And the reason behind this is, as this information is in your brain marinating while you're sleeping, your brain is processing this information. So it's almost like you wake up smarter. What I personally like to do is I study all the hard course material for my college class at night, because by doing this information that's super hard to decipher, my brain is processing it while I'm sleeping. So I recommend you all to do the hard math problems, read the hard passages, study the hard programs at night as well for whatever exam you're taking, because by doing that and by waking up smarter, you not only are able to understand the hard information better, but you kind of like cheat coded your way into understanding hard material. And real quick, if you all use any of these principles in your study routine currently, comment down below, because I'm curious to know which one of you guys actually use these types of principles in your own study routine. And if you have any other tips I did not cover in this video, then be sure to share those too, because I know a lot of students have like SATs, MCATs, ACTs coming up, and they're totally nervous and they will love some extra study tips. So be sure to share your knowledge. And if you took anything away from this video, hopefully you took away everything. One thing that you have to incorporate no matter what is studying at night, because I feel like this little productivity studying hack is one of the best hacks out there. And that is the end of this video. Thank you all for watching.